The elders in the village always said that secrets inside a marriage are like fire under dry grass. You may not see the flames at first, but sooner or later, everything will burn. And on the night this story began, no one knew that a simple decision, one woman's quiet refusal, would set off a chain of events that the whole village would never forget. In a small, sun-warmed village surrounded by tall baobab trees and dusty paths, there lived a woman named Amina. She was known for her calm nature, her kind smile, and most of all, her honesty. People trusted her without question. If Amina said something, it was taken as truth. She was married to Kofi, a hard-working man who spent long days farming his land and trading at the market. To outsiders, they looked like a perfect couple. No loud arguments, no gossip, no visible cracks. But as the old storytellers often remind us, what is hidden inside a home is known only to those who live there. Kofi had recently started bringing home more money than usual. At first, Amina didn't question it. A good harvest, better trade, these things happen. But slowly she began to notice changes. He would count his money in silence, his eyes darting around as if someone was watching. He stopped speaking openly about his work, and sometimes he would leave early in the morning without saying where he was going. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in deep orange, Kofi called Amina into their small hut. His voice was different, lower, heavier. "Amina," he said, placing a small cloth bundle on the floor between them, "I need you to do something for me." She sat quietly, her hands resting in her lap, waiting. "I want you to keep this money," he continued. "Hide it. Somewhere safe. And no one must know. Not even my brothers, not even your closest friend. If anyone asks, you must say you know nothing." Amina looked at the bundle but didn't touch it. Something in her chest tightened. It wasn't fear exactly, but it wasn't peace either. "Kofi," she said softly, "why must I hide it? If it is yours, why can it not stay in the open?" Kofi's face hardened just a little. "Because not everything needs to be explained," he replied. "Sometimes, it is better not to ask questions." Now, in many homes, that would have been the end of the conversation. But Amina was not like most people. She believed that trust was not built on silence but on truth. "I cannot do that," she said, her voice steady but gentle. "I am your wife, not your secret keeper. If there is something wrong with this money, I don't want it in our home. And if there is nothing wrong, then why hide it?" For a long moment, the hut was completely silent. Even the wind outside seemed to pause, as if the world itself was listening. Kofi stared at her, disbelief slowly turning into anger. "You refuse me?" he asked. "I refuse to hide something I do not understand," Amina replied. "Not from you, but for us." That night they ate in silence. No laughter, no shared stories like before. Just the quiet sound of spoons against bowls. And when they lay down to sleep, a distance had already begun to grow between them, one that could not be seen but could definitely be felt. The next morning something strange happened. Kofi was gone before sunrise. At first, Amina thought nothing of it. He had left early before. But as the hours passed and then the entire day, there was no sign of him. No message. No word sent through neighbors. Nothing. By evening, whispers began to spread through the village. Some said they had seen Kofi walking toward the forest path, the one people avoided after dark. Others claimed he had been speaking with unfamiliar men near the market in recent days. And a few, a very few, quietly suggested that the money he brought home may not have come from honest work at all. Amina tried to stay calm, but inside her heart, questions began to rise like a storm. Had she done the right thing? Or had her refusal pushed her husband into something worse? Just as the night grew deep and the stars filled the sky, there was a knock on her door. Not a gentle knock. A heavy, urgent one. Her breath caught in her throat. "Amina," a voice called from outside. "Open the door, we need to speak with you." She recognized the voices, they were village elders, and they did not sound calm. Slowly, her hands trembling just a little, she stepped toward the door. And in that moment, standing between what she knew and what she feared, Amina realized something chilling. Whatever had happened to Kofi, it was no longer just his secret. And now, whether she wanted it or not, she was about to be pulled into it. Amina hesitated for a second, her hand resting on the wooden latch. The night felt heavier than usual, as if the air itself was waiting for something to unfold. The knocking came again, louder this time. Amina opened the door. She took a slow breath and pulled the door open. 3 elders stood outside, their faces serious under the dim glow of a lantern. Behind them, a few villagers had gathered at a distance, whispering among themselves. That alone was enough to send a chill through her body. "What is it?" Amina asked quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. The oldest of the elders stepped forward. His eyes were sharp, searching her face as if trying to read something hidden beneath it. "We need to ask you some questions about your husband," he said. Amina's heart skipped. "Kofi? I have not seen him since yesterday morning." The elders exchanged glances. That small moment said more than words. "Then you should come with us," another elder added. "There are things you need to hear, and things you may need to explain." Amina wrapped her shawl tightly around herself and stepped out into the night, closing the door behind her. As she walked with them through the narrow paths of the village, she could feel eyes watching from the shadows. People who once greeted her warmly were now silent, their curiosity mixed with something else, doubt. They led her to the center of the village where a fire burned low. The elders sat, and Amina remained standing, unsure of what was coming next. The oldest elder cleared his throat. "Your husband has been seen in places that raise concern," he began. "Not just once, but many times over the past few weeks." Amina frowned slightly. "What places?" "The forest path," he said. "Late hours. Meeting people no one here recognizes." Amina's mind raced. The whispers she had heard earlier now felt heavier, more real. Still she shook her head. "Kofi is a farmer. A trader. He would not involve himself in anything wrong." "Would he not?" another elder asked, his tone calm but firm. "Tell us, Amina, has he brought anything unusual into your home? Money, perhaps?" The question hit her harder than she expected. For a moment she said nothing. The fire crackled softly, filling the silence. Then she spoke. "Yes, he did bring money," she admitted. "More than usual." The murmurs around them grew louder. "And what did he ask you to do with it?" the elder continued. Amina swallowed. She could feel every eye on her now. "He asked me to hide it," she said finally. "But I refused." That stirred something among the elders. Some leaned closer, others exchanged knowing looks. "You refused?" the oldest one repeated. "Yes," Amina said, her voice stronger this time. "I told him I would not keep secrets like that. Not without understanding where it came from." A long silence followed. Then the elder nodded slowly, as if that piece of truth had confirmed something in his mind. "Then listen carefully," he said. "This morning word reached us from a nearby village. A group of travelers reported being stopped on the road last night, their goods taken, their path blocked by men who knew exactly what they were carrying." Amina felt her chest tighten. "They described one of the men," he continued. "His height. His voice. The way he walked." She didn't want to hear the next words, but she couldn't stop them. "They believe that man was your husband." Amina's breath caught. "No, that cannot be true." "We are not saying it is certain," another elder added. "But the signs are troubling. And your husband is missing." Her mind began to spin. Kofi? The quiet man who worked the fields, who rarely raised his voice. The man she had defended just moments ago? "It is not like him," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "People change," the elder replied gently. "Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once." Amina looked down at her hands. They were trembling now, no matter how hard she tried to stay calm. Images flashed through her mind, Kofi counting money in silence, avoiding her eyes, leaving early without explanation. Had she ignored the signs? Or had she trusted him too much? "There is something else," the oldest elder said, pulling her back to the moment. He reached beside him and lifted a small cloth bundle. Amina's heart dropped. It looked exactly like the one Kofi had placed in front of her the night before. "This was found near the edge of the forest path," the elder said. "Not far from where the travelers said the incident happened." He placed it on the ground between them. "Open it," he told her. Amina hesitated. Every part of her wanted to step back, to refuse, but she knew she couldn't. Not now. Slowly she knelt down and untied the cloth. Inside was money, but not just money. There were also small items, pieces of jewelry, a carved pendant, things that clearly did not belong together. Things that looked like they had been taken from different people. Her hands froze. I have never seen this before," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We believe you," one of the elders said. "But belief alone will not protect you from what may come next." Amina looked up, confusion and fear mixing in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "If your husband is involved in something dangerous," the elder said carefully, "then those he is involved with may come looking for what he left behind, or for anyone connected to him." The fire flickered, casting shifting shadows across their faces. "And now," he added, "your name is part of this story." Amina felt the weight of those words settle deep inside her. She had only tried to do what was right, to keep honesty in her home. But now it seemed that her choice had pulled her into something far bigger than she ever imagined. And as the night grew darker, one question refused to leave her mind. If Kofi was truly involved in all this, then where was he now? And why had he left that bundle behind? The fire burned lower as the elders dismissed the small crowd, but the whispers did not fade. They only moved farther into the shadows, carried from one doorway to another. Amina could feel it already. Her life, once simple and respected, had begun to shift in a way she could not control. One of the elder women, Mama Saad, stepped closer and gently placed a hand on Amina's shoulder. "Come," she said softly. "You should not stay alone tonight." But Amina shook her head. "No. I need to go back home." Her voice was quiet, but there was something firm beneath it. "If Kofi returns, I must be there." The elders hesitated, then allowed her to leave, though their worried eyes followed her until she disappeared into the narrow path leading to her hut. The walk back felt longer than usual. Every small sound made her heart jump. The rustling of leaves, the distant call of a night bird, even the wind brushing against the dry grass. The village that once felt safe now carried a strange tension, as if it was holding its breath. When she reached her home, she paused at the door. For a moment she simply stood there listening. Nothing. Slowly she stepped inside. The hut looked the same as she had left it, but it no longer felt the same. The quiet was heavier, filled with questions that had no answers. She lit a small lamp and sat down, her eyes drifting to the corner where Kofi had placed the bundle the night before. Her chest tightened again. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" she whispered into the silence. But no answer came. Hours passed, but sleep did not. Amina sat awake, her thoughts tangled. Part of her wanted to believe the elders were wrong, that there was some mistake, some misunderstanding. But another part of her, a quieter, more honest part, remembered the look in Kofi's eyes when he asked her to hide the money. That look had not been normal. Just before dawn, a faint sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Amina froze. They were outside, slow, careful steps like someone trying not to be heard. Her breath caught as she stood up quietly. Every instinct told her to stay still, to say nothing. But something else, something stronger, pushed her toward the door. "Kofi?" she called softly. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Her heart pounded as she moved closer. "Kofi, is that you?" For a few seconds nothing happened. Then suddenly the sound of running feet broke through the stillness, fast, urgent, moving away from the hut. Amina rushed to the door and pulled it open, but all she saw was the empty path disappearing into the early morning light. Whoever it was, they had been right outside her home. And they had heard her. A chill ran through her body. By mid-morning, the village was already alive with talk. News spread quickly, and now Amina's situation had become the center of every conversation. Some people spoke with sympathy, remembering her kindness over the years. Others were less gentle, questioning how much she truly knew. At the water well, the usual laughter had been replaced with hushed voices. "I heard she refused to hide the money," one woman said. "Or maybe she hid some of it already," another replied quietly. "You never know what goes on inside a marriage," a third added. Amina heard enough before turning away. The words stung, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. If she allowed herself to break now, she knew it would only make things worse. As she walked back, she noticed something unusual. A man she did not recognize stood near the edge of the village. He wasn't speaking to anyone, just watching. His eyes followed her. Amina slowed her steps slightly, her heart beginning to race again. There was something about the way he stood, too still, too focused, that made her uneasy. For a moment their eyes met. Then he turned and walked away without a word. Amina stood there frozen. Another stranger. Another piece of a puzzle she didn't understand. That afternoon, Mama Saad came to visit her, carrying a small basket of food. "You must eat," she said gently, setting it down. "Worry will not help you if you grow weak." Amina gave a small nod but didn't reach for the food. "Mama Saad," she said after a moment, "do you think Kofi is truly involved in something wrong?" The older woman sighed, sitting beside her. "I think something has changed in him," she replied carefully. "And whatever it is bigger than what we can see right now." Amina looked down. "He asked me to trust him. But how can I trust what I don't understand?" "That is the hardest question in any marriage," Mama Saad said softly. Before Amina could respond, a young boy came running toward the hut, breathless. "Amina," he called out. "There are men at the edge of the village, they are asking for you." Amina's heart dropped. "For me?" she repeated. The boy nodded quickly. "They say they know your husband." The air around her seemed to grow cold. Mama Saad stood up immediately. "Stay here," she said firmly. "Do not go to them alone." But Amina was already on her feet. If these men knew Kofi, then they might know where he was, or what he had done, or worse, what he had become part of. As she stepped outside, she could see them in the distance, two figures standing near the same place where she had seen the stranger earlier. Waiting. Watching. And somehow, deep inside, Amina felt it. Whatever answers they carried would not bring her peace. Amina slowed her steps as she approached the edge of the village, her heart beating so loudly it almost drowned out everything else. The two men stood where the dusty path met the open land beyond, their figures still and patient, as if they had all the time in the world. Villagers lingered at a distance, pretending to go about their business but watching closely. No one came near. No one spoke. Amina stopped a few steps away from the men. Up close, she could see more clearly now. Both were strangers, their clothes marked with travel dust, their expressions serious but not openly hostile. Still, there was something in their eyes, something that made her uneasy. "You are Amina?" one of them said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," she replied carefully. The second man stepped forward slightly. "We are looking for your husband, Kofi." Amina held his gaze. "So am I." A brief silence passed between them. The first man glanced around as if making sure no one else was close enough to hear. Then he lowered his voice. "Your husband has involved himself in a situation that is no longer simple," he said. "And now, it is affecting more than just him." Amina's fingers tightened around the edge of her shawl. "What situation?" she asked. The man hesitated, then said, "There are people who trusted him. Goods were moved. Promises were made. But something went wrong." Amina felt a cold wave pass through her. What kind of goods? The two men exchanged a quick look as if deciding how much to say. "Things that do not belong to him," the second man replied. "Things that others are now searching for." Her mind went back to the bundle the elders had shown her, the mixed items, the unfamiliar pieces. Her stomach twisted. "I told him not to hide anything," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I refused." The first man studied her face closely. "Yes," he said. "We heard." Amina looked up sharply. "You heard?" "Word travels fast," he replied. "Especially when something like this begins to unfold." Amina felt exposed, like her private life had been pulled out into the open for strangers to examine. "Then listen carefully," the second man said, his tone more serious now. "If you truly did not take part in what your husband was doing, then you need to be cautious. Because others will not ask as many questions as we have." Amina's heart skipped. "Others?" Before either man could answer, a voice called out from behind. "Amina." She turned quickly. It was one of the village boys again, running toward her, breathless. "The elders are calling you back," he said. "They said it is urgent." Amina looked between the boy and the two men, torn. "We will not stay long," the first man said quietly. "But remember this, if Kofi comes to you, do not ignore it. And do not pretend you do not see what is happening." "What do you mean?" Amina asked. But the men had already stepped back. "Be careful who you trust," the second one added, before both of them turned and walked away, disappearing into the wide, open path beyond the village. Amina stood there for a moment, her thoughts racing. Every answer she received only seemed to bring more questions. She quickly made her way back toward the center of the village, where a larger group had now gathered around the elders. The air felt tense, heavier than before. "What happened?" she asked as she approached. The oldest elder looked at her with a deep, troubled expression. "There has been another report," he said. Amina's stomach dropped. "Another?" "More travelers passed near the forest path this morning," he continued. "They say they saw signs of movement, fresh tracks like people have been coming and going regularly." A murmur spread through the crowd. "And that is not all," another elder added. "Someone claims they saw Kofi late last night." Amina's breath caught. "Where?" "Near your home." Her mind went blank for a second. The footsteps. The silence. The running figure in the dark. "He was there," she whispered. "I heard someone, but when I opened the door no one was there." The crowd reacted immediately, voices rising. "Why didn't you say something before?" "Maybe she knows more than she is telling us." "She could be hiding him." Amina stepped back, shaken. "No, that is not true," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "If he had spoken to me, I would have told you. I don't know where he is." The elders raised their hands, trying to calm the crowd. "Enough," the oldest one said. "We will not turn against each other without truth." But the tension did not fade. It only shifted. Then suddenly a new voice broke through the noise. A low, familiar voice. "Amina." Everything went still. Her heart stopped for a moment before pounding harder than ever. Slowly, very slowly, she turned. And there, at the edge of the gathering, standing just beyond the circle of people, was Kofi. His clothes were dusty. His face looked tired, different somehow, like a man carrying something heavy inside him. His eyes met hers, and for a brief second the world around them seemed to disappear. No one spoke. No one moved. All the questions, all the fear, all the whispers, everything led to this moment. Amina took a small step forward, her voice barely holding together. "Kofi, where have you been?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, his gaze shifted to the elders, then to the crowd, then back to her. And when he finally spoke, his voice carried something she had never heard before. "Amina, you should not have refused me that night." A ripple of shock passed through the crowd. Amina felt her chest tighten. "What are you saying?" Kofi took a slow step closer, lowering his voice just enough that only those nearest could hear. "Because now," he said, "things have gone too far to turn back." The wind picked up slightly, stirring the dust around their feet. No one knew what he meant, but everyone felt it. Something bigger was coming. And whatever it was already too close. Amina stared at Kofi, her mind struggling to catch up with his words. The man standing in front of her looked like her husband, but something about him felt distant, almost unfamiliar. His voice carried a weight that made her uneasy. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice low but steady. "Too far to turn back from what?" Kofi didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around at the villagers, the elders, the watchful eyes that now surrounded him. It was clear he wasn't just speaking to Amina anymore. Whatever he was about to say would be heard by everyone. "I did what I had to do," he finally said. "For us. For this home." Amina shook her head slowly. "No, don't say that. Don't use me to explain something you won't even tell the truth about." A murmur moved through the crowd again. The tension was thick, pressing in from every side. One of the elders stepped forward. "Kofi," he said firmly, "you need to explain yourself. There are serious concerns about what you've been involved in. If there is truth to these rumors, it will affect not only you but this entire village." Kofi's jaw tightened. For a moment it looked like he might walk away again. But then something shifted in his expression, like he had realized there was no escaping this anymore. "You think this is just about me?" he said, his voice rising slightly. "You think I am the only one connected to this?" The words landed heavily. Amina felt her breath catch. "What are you saying?" Kofi looked directly at the elders now. "The roads have not been safe for a long time," he continued. "Goods have been moving through here, not just passing by but stopping. Deals being made. People from outside coming in quietly without notice." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. "That is not new," one of them said carefully. "Travelers pass through from time to time." Kofi let out a short, humorless laugh. "Not like this," he replied. "Not with people who watch, who wait, who remember every face." A silence followed. Then Amina spoke again, her voice softer now, but filled with urgency. "Kofi, what did you do?" He turned back to her, and for a brief second she saw something break through: fear. "I got involved with men who promised easy money," he admitted. "At first it was small things. Carrying messages. Meeting people at the edge of the forest. I told myself it was nothing serious." Amina closed her eyes for a moment, pain spreading through her chest. "But it didn't stay small," he continued. "They began to trust me. They brought more. Asked for more. And before I realized it, I was already too deep." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. "And the money?" one elder asked. Kofi nodded slowly. "It came from them." Amina's hands trembled again. "And the things in the bundle?" Kofi hesitated. "They weren't all mine to take," he said finally. A wave of shock passed through the villagers. "But listen to me," he added quickly, his voice more urgent now. "I tried to step away. I did. That's why I asked you to hide the money, Amina. I needed time to figure out how to get out without putting you in danger." Amina looked at him, disbelief and hurt mixing in her eyes. "You think hiding it would have protected us?" she said. You brought danger into our home and called it protection. Kofi didn't argue. Because deep down he knew she was right. Before anyone could say more, a sudden sound cut through the moment. Footsteps. Not one or two, but several. Coming fast. Every head turned toward the path leading into the village. A group of men appeared, moving with purpose. Their presence alone changed the air completely. These were not villagers. Their faces were hard, their movements controlled, and their eyes scanned everything with quiet intensity. Amina felt her stomach drop. The same feeling she had earlier when she saw the stranger. Only now, it was stronger. They had come. The two men Amina spoke to earlier were among them. And this time they were not alone. The group stopped just at the edge of the gathering. No one stepped forward to greet them. No one dared. One of the men, taller than the rest, took a slow step forward. His eyes settled directly on Kofi. "So," he said calmly, "this is where you decided to hide." The words were quiet, but they carried a sharp edge. Kofi didn't move. "I wasn't hiding," he replied. "I came back." The man tilted his head slightly, studying him. "You left without finishing what you started," he said. "That is not something we ignore." Amina felt her pulse racing. This was bigger than she thought. Much bigger. The elder stepped forward, trying to maintain control of the situation. "This is a village matter," he said firmly. "Whatever issue you have, it should not be handled this way." The man didn't even look at him. "Our matter," he said slowly, "does not stop at the edge of your village." The message was clear. They were not here to negotiate. Amina's eyes moved quickly between Kofi and the men. "What do they want?" she asked in a low voice. Kofi didn't answer right away. Then he said something that made her heart drop even further. "They want what I couldn't deliver." Amina's breath caught. "And what is that?" Kofi looked at her, his expression filled with something close to regret. "Something I hid before I came back." The ground beneath her felt unsteady. Another secret. Another layer she knew nothing about. And now, whatever it was, these men had come for it. The tall man took another step forward. "We are done waiting," he said. "You will take us to it." The villagers stood frozen, caught between fear and confusion. Amina felt the weight of everything pressing down at once. Her husband's secrets, the strangers, the danger that had now stepped fully into their lives. And as she looked at Kofi, one question echoed louder than all the others. What exactly had he hidden? And why did it feel like finding it would change everything? Amina felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Every word Kofi had spoken, every secret that had slowly come into the light, now stood in front of her in the form of these men. There was no more guessing. No more rumors. This was real. "Kofi," she said, her voice shaking but clear, "tell them where it is, and end this." The tall man's eyes shifted to her, studying her closely. For a moment there was silence, thick and heavy. Kofi looked at Amina, and something in his expression softened. "You still believe this can end simply?" he said quietly. "It can't." "It has to," she replied. "Because this is no longer just about you." The villagers stood frozen, watching, waiting. The elders said nothing now. This had moved beyond their control. Kofi took a slow breath and turned back to the men. "If I take you to it," he said, "you leave this village alone." The tall man gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "That depends on what we find." Amina stepped forward suddenly. "No," she said. "Not like this." Everyone looked at her. "You don't trust him," she continued, her voice stronger now. "And I don't trust you. So whatever is hidden, we all go together." A ripple moved through the crowd. Kofi shook his head slightly. "Amina, no." "Yes," she cut in. "You brought this to our home. I will not stand aside and let it destroy everything without seeing it with my own eyes." For a moment, it seemed like Kofi would refuse. But then he looked at her, really looked at her, and something changed. He nodded. "Fine," he said quietly. The group began to move toward the forest path, the same path everyone in the village avoided after dark. Now, in the fading light of the day, it felt just as uneasy. The air grew cooler as they walked deeper, the sounds of the village fading behind them. Amina stayed close to Kofi, her heart pounding with every step. The men followed closely, their presence constant, watchful. After some time, Kofi slowed down. "We're close," he said. They reached a large baobab tree, its thick roots twisting out of the ground like old hands. Kofi stopped there and knelt down, brushing away dry leaves from a spot near the base. Amina held her breath. Slowly he began to dig. The silence around them was intense. Even the wind seemed to have disappeared. After a few moments, his hand struck something solid. He pulled out a wrapped bundle, larger than the one Amina had seen before. He hesitated for just a second, then placed it on the ground. "This is it," he said. The tall man stepped forward immediately. Without asking, he crouched down and opened the bundle. Inside were items carefully packed. More valuables, more pieces that clearly belonged to others. But beneath them, something else. A small wooden box. The man's expression changed slightly as he picked it up. "This," he said quietly, "is what matters." Amina frowned. "What is it?" No one answered her. The man opened the box. Inside were folded papers. He pulled one out, scanning it quickly. And then, for the first time, his calm expression cracked. "This," he muttered. Kofi looked at him, confusion flashing across his face. "What is it?" The man looked up sharply. "You didn't know?" "Know what?" Kofi asked. The man held up the paper. "These are records," he said. "Names, places, deals." Amina felt her chest tighten again. "Records?" Kofi shook his head slowly. "I never opened it," he said. "They told me to keep it safe until they came back for it. That's all." The other men were now crowding closer, their focus completely on the box. "This changes things," one of them said under his breath. The tall man stood up, his eyes now fixed on Kofi in a very different way. "You were trusted with something far more important than you understood," he said. Kofi stepped back slightly. "I told you, I didn't know what was inside." Amina looked between them, her mind racing. "Then why does it matter so much?" she asked. The man didn't answer her directly. Instead, he said something that made the tension rise all over again. "These names, they are not just from outside." A silence fell. "What do you mean?" Amina asked. The man looked toward the village even though it was no longer in sight. "There are names here," he said slowly, "that belong to people from your village." The words hit like a sudden storm. Kofi's eyes widened. "That's not possible." The man held up another paper. "It is." Amina felt a deep, unsettling feeling grow inside her. If what he was saying was true, then this was never just about Kofi making a mistake. This was something deeper. Something hidden in plain sight. The tall man closed the box and turned to his group. "We're taking this," he said. Then he looked at Kofi again. "As for you, your mistake was not just getting involved." He paused. "It was not understanding what you were carrying." Amina stepped closer to Kofi, her voice low. "What happens now?" Before he could answer, a new sound broke through the stillness. More footsteps. From a different direction. Everyone turned. Figures began to emerge from between the trees. Not strangers this time. Villagers. Faces they knew. And at the front, one of the elders. But his expression was no longer calm or guiding. It was tense. Guarded. And in that moment, Amina understood something that made her heart sink even deeper. This story, this secret, had been inside the village all along. And now, with everyone standing face to face in the fading light, there was no more hiding it. Whatever happened next would change everything they thought they knew. Amina felt her breath grow shallow as the villagers stepped forward from the trees. Faces she had known her whole life now looked unfamiliar, guarded, almost afraid. The elder who stood at the front avoided her eyes at first, focusing instead on the men holding the wooden box. "So," the tall stranger said slowly, "it seems the story is bigger than we were told." The elder finally spoke, his voice heavy. "Put the box down," he said. "This matter does not belong to outsiders." Amina's heart sank at those words. Outsiders? Just moments ago, the elders had stood as protectors of the village. Now, something in their tone felt different, like they were protecting something else. Kofi stepped forward, confusion and anger mixing on his face. "You knew?" he asked. "All this time, you knew what was happening?" The elder didn't answer immediately. His silence was enough. Amina looked from one face to another, searching for something familiar, honesty maybe, but all she found was tension. "Please," she said, her voice breaking slightly, "someone tell the truth. Enough of secrets." The forest seemed to hold its breath again. Finally the elder spoke. "This village has survived for many years because we made difficult choices," he said. "Sometimes, we allowed certain things to pass through quietly. Goods, messages, things that were not meant to stay, only to move." Amina shook her head slowly. "And you thought that was right?" "We thought it was necessary," he replied. Kofi let out a bitter laugh. "So I was not the only one," he said. "You let me believe I was the one doing something wrong." "You chose to go deeper," another elder added. You did more than carry messages. Kofi didn't deny it. He lowered his head for a moment. I thought I could control it, he admitted. I thought I could take something from it and walk away. And you couldn't, Amina said softly. He looked at her, regret clear in his eyes. No, he replied. I couldn't. The tall man holding the box stepped forward again. Whatever agreements you had before, he said, addressing the elders, they are broken now. This, he lifted the box slightly, changes everything. The elders' face tightened. Those records were never meant to be seen. But they were, the man replied. And now everyone standing here knows there is more beneath the surface. A heavy silence followed. Amina felt something shift inside her. All the fear, all the confusion, it slowly turned into something clearer. Understanding. Not of everything, but enough. This is what secrets do, she said quietly, her voice cutting through the tension. They don't stay small. They grow. They spread. And one day, they stand in front of everyone just like this. No one interrupted her. She looked at Kofi. You asked me to hide money, she said. But it was never just about money. It was about hiding the truth. Kofi nodded slowly, unable to argue. Then she turned to the elders. And you did the same. Maybe for different reasons, but the result is the same. The words hung in the air. For the first time, the elder lowered his gaze. What happens now? Amina asked. It was a simple question, but it carried everything with it. The tall man glanced at his group, then back at the villagers. We take what belongs to us, he said. And we leave. And Kofi? Amina asked, her voice softer now. The man looked at him for a long moment. He made mistakes, he said. But he is not the only one. Kofi stood still, waiting. Finally, the man nodded once. He stays, he said. What he faces next is not for us to decide. Amina let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. The group began to step back, the box in their possession, their purpose fulfilled. Within moments, they disappeared into the forest, leaving behind a silence that felt almost unreal. Now it was just the villagers. No strangers. No hiding. Only truth. Kofi turned to the elders. What will you do now? He asked. The elder looked older somehow, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with him. We will face what we have allowed, he said. No more secrets. Not like this. Amina watched as the tension slowly began to loosen, though it didn't disappear completely. Some wounds take time. She turned to Kofi. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said quietly, You were right. Amina didn't respond immediately. She looked at him, really looked at him, the man she had trusted, the man who had made choices that nearly destroyed everything. I didn't want to be right, she said finally. I just wanted us to be honest. Kofi nodded, his eyes filled with regret. I thought hiding things would protect us, he admitted. But it only made everything worse. Amina sighed softly. Truth is not always easy, she said. But it is lighter than carrying lies. The wind moved gently through the trees now, as if the forest itself had relaxed. They began the walk back to the village, slower this time. No rush. No fear chasing them from behind. Just quiet thoughts. As they reached the edge of the village, Amina paused and looked back once more at the forest path. So much had begun there, and so much had almost been lost. But something had been found too. Clarity. And a lesson that would not be forgotten. In the days that followed, the village changed. Not all at once, but slowly. Conversations became more open. Questions were no longer pushed aside. The elders listened more than they spoke. And Amina. She remained the same in one way, honest, steady, but stronger in another. She had stood in the middle of fear and uncertainty and chose truth, even when it cost her peace. As for Kofi, he stayed. Not as the same man he once was, but as someone who had learned the hard way that shortcuts often lead to deeper troubles. Their home was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not one filled with hidden things, but one that allowed space for truth. And in the end, the story that people whispered about was no longer just about danger or secrets. It was about a woman who refused to hide what didn't feel right. And how that one decision, though it brought fear and tension, helped bring everything into the light. Because sometimes the hardest choice is the one that saves everything.